in turn, like World War II, which was a progressive president. World War II, FDR interred Japanese, Germans, and Italians. In World War I, the king of progressives, Woodrow Wilson, interred Germans. Okay, so the progressives did that. But she's now whipping people up. Nancy Pelosi, where are you on this one? They're coming to intern people. Really? That would incite violence, I would think. All right, the president has also made it clear how he feels with SEIU, who also deals in intimidation. Here's SEIU. Remember, they have not hesitated to use intimidation. Oh, here he is.
Just imagine what we could do together. Imagine having a president whose life work was your work.
Okay, so there he is. We all know he's in bed with SEIU. Not hesitated, SEIU, to use intimidation and violence. Then you have the hiring of Van Jones. Now, I want to show this to you because you got to remember, Valerie Jarrett is like a sister to the president. This is what she said when they hired Van Jones. It's important you understand they knew exactly who he was.
Van Jones, we were so delighted to be able to recruit him into the White House. We've been watching him really he's not that old, but for as long as he's been active out in Oakland.
Okay, as long as he's been active out in Oakland. Van Jones, who was he when he was active in Oakland, California? Well, a communist. He was also the head of the Ella Baker Center. He started also the Communist Storm organization. I've asked you to please get this manual. It's available at glennbeck.com. It's free. Just read it, please. This is what his manual stated. Revolutionaries need to be militant in street actions. As leaders in the fight for liberation, we should be role models of fearlessness before the state and the oppressor. They also said marches were to be militant and confrontational, regularly defying police commands and occasionally plunging through police lines and barricades. Got it? Militant intimidation, militant intimidation, militant intimidation, militant intimidation. The president has no problem associating with militants who intimidate.
Militant intimidation can sometimes be taken to the next level. Terrorism. That's where Bill Ayers of the Weather Underground comes in. We'll trace his ties to the president and more next. Tonight we're looking at the radicals of the past and the present who are influencing the way this country is being run today. Up now, the Weather Underground.
The Weather Underground bombed New York City Police headquarters in 1970, U.S. Capitol Building in 71, the Pentagon in 72, police cars in May of 1973, and in 1974, the Weather Underground wrote about what needed to be done. Quote, "We have an urgent responsibility to destroy imperialism from within in order to help free the world and ourselves from its grasps. Without underestimating the difficulties, this is our position of strength. We all will use the weapons available to us." If you look at the individuals, you have Jeff Jones. He grew up in California. His dad worked for Walt Disney, was a pacifist, conscientious objector to the war. But his beliefs were not well thought out yet and well formed, and so he was easily swept into the radical movement when he went to college in 1965. Then there's Bernadine Dorn. Remember these names because they appear again in very, very recent history. Bernadine Dorn, she grew up in Wisconsin. She was an upper-class suburb. She attended college. It was also the time that she was first known to dive into radicalism. She's known for uttering this unfortunate statement about the Charles Manson murders. Quote, "Dig it. First they killed those pigs, then they ate dinner in the same room with them, then they even shoved a fork into the victim's stomach. Wild." End quote. Dorn, now a respected member of society, later says she was lucky they didn't kill anyone. Well, apparently Dorn doesn't consider Terry Gold, Terry Robbins, and Ayers' girlfriend, Diana Oughton, people, because those three died in a premature explosion of some bombs that they were making in 1970. Dorn was also on an FBI top 10 most wanted list from 1970 to 1973. She's a sweetheart. Bill Ayers grew up in an upper-middle-class suburb of Illinois. His dad was the CEO of a giant utility company, Commonwealth Edison. He attended an exclusive prep school, and maybe that's why he uses such fancy language now. Yeah, he's a professor, you know. But he said he hated every minute of it there. He liked free thought, man. And he found at the University of Michigan that they had free thought. Ayers was key in turning towards militancy. Now he says about the bombings that he doesn't have anything to apologize for. Quote, I wish I had done more. More?
That may have been then, but where are they now? And why does it matter to you?
Where is Jeff Jones now? Jeff Jones now has his own consulting firm that helps progressives achieve their goals. He's on the board of a movement for democratic society that works closely with SDS. Yes, SDS is still there. It is now growing the new Weathermen and Weather Underground, now available possibly in your child's high school. He's also a member of the Apollo Alliance. Remember them? They had the funding from Tides and they helped write the stimulus package. Sure, unconstitutional, but Jeff Jones now decides, or helps the state of New York decide, where your tax money goes from the stimulus. Bill Ayers hadn't done enough, really. In 1997, he won the Citizen of the Year award for his work on the Chicago Annenberg Challenge project. He's a professor at the University of Chicago. He served on the board with President Obama at the Woods Foundation. They were neighbors, and Obama attended a campaign event at this man's house. He's now a respected and influential member of society. And his lovely and talented wife, Bernadine Doran, married to Bill Ayers. She's now an associate professor of law at Northwest University School of Law and was director of Northwestern's Children and Family Justice Center. She's teaching kids. Isn't that great? Doran and Ayers played a key role in organizing something that's been in the news recently, the Free Gaza movement. You know, the one that launched the flotilla whose crew attacked Israeli soldiers who boarded, and then they stabbed them violently and threw one over the deck.
These are the people who are teaching our students today. There are people who are still involved in decision-making for the country, and they're not remorseful at all about their past actions. One update for you, though, on Bill Ayers. He's now a retiree. He announced his retirement from professorhood at the University of Illinois at Chicago last month. What on earth will he do next? Up next, the blueprint that these violent radicals created in the 60s to destroy America and tactics from it that are still being used today. Back now with our special edition of the Glenn Beck program, the second day of a one-week crash course on what we've learned so far this year. Tonight, we're focusing on the radicals that have influenced and are continuing to influence our president and his administration. Before the last break, you all heard about the Weather Underground and some of its members. Now, a close look at their blueprint to destroy America from the 60s and why it still matters today.
I believe this document explains the reason for many of the actions that we are seeing from this administration, because I can't make sense of it. This document is from June 18th, 1969. It's the manifesto from the Weathermen. Now, I have to tell you, if somebody would hand this to me in the street and say, hey, Glenn, you got to read. And I would also think this is ancient history. But if you don't know history, you won't know where we've been, where we are, or where we're headed. This manifesto, when you read it, sounds crazy to the average person. It does. But as you read it, I know I read it in bed one night, and I kept waking my wife up. Honey, 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 listen to this. It sure sounds an awful lot like the things that we're doing. And there are people in and around this administration who not only wrote this, but they still buy into the philosophy contained in these pages. Let's list off a couple of recurring themes in this manifesto. They attack capitalism. They call capitalism in this imperialism. And they often speak about the struggles it causes. And they use any struggle as proof of hopelessness. They repeatedly talk about how you have no chance to succeed in this system. Michael Moore writes about this in his book. No chance. For example, they say, the masses will fight for socialism when they understand that the reform fights for improvement of material conditions, cannot be won under imperialism. So in other words, make sure you tell people they can't make it. These guys don't buy into the American dream, which is funny because most of them come from well-to-do backgrounds. Then another recurring theme in this is redistribution of wealth. Your stuff. Your stuff is not really yours. Quoting from their manifesto. Listen to this. All of the United Airlines Astro jets, all of the Holiday Inns, all of the Hertz automobiles, your television set, your car, your wardrobe, all ready to belong to a large degree to the people of the rest of the world. Then there's class warfare, pit the rich against the poor, and liberation warfare, which is there's the oppressor and the victim. And we've got to save everybody by getting the oppressor. Then there is the globalism part of it and indoctrination. Indoctrination, he says, they write this, we will only reach the high school kids who are in motion by being in the schoolyards on an everyday basis. How do you get into the schoolyards on an everyday basis? Hey, here's a good idea. Why not teach? Then they also say this, an interesting thing they talk about in this is being clandestine. To win a war with an enemy as highly organized and centralized as the imperialist, the capitalist, will require a clandestine organization of revolutionaries. So in other words, don't let anybody know you're a revolutionary. Now, do any of those goals at all sound familiar? Seems like we might be stuck in the 1970s. You have to hate capitalism, redistribute the wealth. You can't make it on your own. The rich are evil. Workers of the world unite. But there's more disturbing parts of it. Ask yourself, which way are we headed? Now, who are they using to achieve their goals? In this manifesto, they talk about it and they lay it all out. It's really quite fascinating. There's a few people that they say you have to have. One, you got to grab the youth, students. They know they must have the students. I think we got that one locked down in the universities. Then they have to have the labor unions. Workers of the world unite. What was it that Andy Stern said? Oh yeah, that was the exact quote. Workers of the world unite. It's not just a slogan anymore. They have the labor unions. I want you to know the people who wrote this are 6 degrees separation from the president. You wouldn't have these people standing right next to you. But what about the people standing right next to the president? What if they stand right next to those people? Is that far enough separation? These are the friends of this administration. These are the people in the administration. These are the organizations that are tied to the administration. You have Andy Stern, SDS, Workers of the World Unite. You have Van Jones, a communist, Mao lovers, Ron Bloom, barrel of the gun, Anita Dunn. You have Weather Underground, Jeff Jones. Where's Jeff? Here's Jeff. He worked with the Apollo Alliance. What does the Apollo Alliance do? The Apollo Alliance worked on the stimulus package. He's now in the government of New York advising them on how to spend it. Hugo Chavez praising Mark Lloyd at the FCC. They all think the same way. How is that? What are the odds? That they all think that America is the bad guy, the imperialist, that capitalism is over. They all believe in redistribution of wealth, and yet he's surprised. Now let me ask you this. Do you know one person that was a member of SDS or is a member of SDS today? Do you know one person who is an admitted militant communist that called recently for the overthrow of the United States? Do you know one? Do you know one person that wants to dismantle the free market brick by brick? Do you know anybody? One that was part of a non-repentant group of terrorists who blew up the Pentagon and routinely bombed and shot up police? Do you know one person that hates the Constitution? One that disagrees with the Declaration of Independence? One. Do you know one? He knows all of them. This is an undisputed fact. So So you have to make a choice. This is either the most unluckiest streak of job hires of all time. Oh, what do you mean? Another radical? Oh, gee, how could we be?